Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED this March weekend of 2016. Pete Belcastro with you, and thanks for joining us today on the Real Estate Show. I'm a principal broker with John L. Scott Real Estate in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics that face us in Jackson and Josephine County. Well, already in 2016, man, have we had some great guests on and some pretty interesting topics. And here we are in March now, which is the beginning of the three busiest real estate months of the year of March, April, and May. And, those statistics will be coming out in a few weeks, and we'll see if that is holding true again in 2016. It certainly seems to be, I'll tell you that, in terms of buyers and sellers and the activity that is out there is certainly continues to be, I guess the best word to use is robust. There's a lot of people looking, of course, and the supply of inventory remains pretty low, and so the sellers remain in control of the market, as you know. Well, Colleen Padilla is the Senior Business Development Manager for the Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development Incorporated. So ready as they are known and they've been part of this valley for many, many years. They're charged with a part of the real estate market that we really don't talk much about, and that's in the area of jobs and the economy. Our listeners know that nobody's really in charge of housing in Jackson County. It's kind of hit or miss, an area where you go, and there's no real kind of plan for this. But So Ready has kind of been charged as the kind of the leader in the job creation area, the job area. Anyway, Colleen's with us. Nice to have you back to the Real Estate Show.
Thank you, Pete. It's good to be here.
Yeah, you must be, well, I would think So Ready is like real estate is pretty robust in your end of the world. Is that true?
So Ready is very busy right now. We have a lot of companies reaching out to us, interested in relocating to the area or expanding even some of our own companies. So we're very busy. Just 6 of us. So we're out doing everything we can to get some companies here that will create more jobs.
Well, when we were talking about Colleen coming on the show, one of the things that she brings a fresh set of eyes to real estate that we don't talk. We talk always about buyers and sellers, and renters and that kind of thing. And from our perspective as real estate brokers or the real estate business, you're kind of look at it from a different perspective, don't you, Colleen?
We do look at it from a different perspective. We're interested in outside companies coming here and hopefully trying to find that piece of property that fits what they need so that they can create jobs, which is our mission, to help businesses create jobs. So our focus is primarily on light industrial and commercial properties in the 2-county region, which includes Josephine County.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of activity do you have on that? I mean, is it is there? I mean, I'm sure that your business was just like the real estate business. 2009, things went off the cliff, and you've had to fight that way back. Tell me how that came about here and what that has been like in Jackson and Josephine counties.
So I think what we've seen, of course, with the recession, our business or the prospects of businesses coming in dipped down and things went quiet. And then in recent years, it's really started to come back, pent-up demand from companies that had a project but then needed to wait. And now those projects are coming back and they're looking for the right site. And maybe Southern Oregon is the fit. We want to make that case. However, we have some constraints, and that is that we don't have the types of buildings that most of these manufacturers are looking for. Not the right size, not the right configuration, maybe not even in the right zoning. So we have what I would say a lack of inventory of larger industrial sized buildings.
Okay. When you say larger industrial size, explain that more to us.
So a lot of the companies that we're courting, they are looking for 30,000 square feet and larger for light industrial applications, production or otherwise, where they would have production workers or some processes that require room for equipment and warehousing that would hire, 50 to 200 and maybe above 200 jobs.
Okay. And there's not, those aren't out. I mean, I'm trying to think,
they're not there.
Where are 30,000 square foot buildings around either Grants Pass, Medford are out there, and there probably isn't any, is there?
Interestingly, we just had a conversation about this with some other colleagues, that there might be in the 2-county region available a handful, maybe 6 or 7, maybe even 10. There may be a few we don't know about that are that 30,000 square foot or above, but every company has a different need, so they might need a high ceiling, or some might need a lower ceiling, or what we do have might be an old barracks that's out in White City that just isn't going to fit the need of that company. So we may have a few, but they're not perfect.
How do you deal with that? How do you solve that problem? How do you, with So Ready, how do you deal with that?
Well, we're trying to solve that problem by asking developers to potentially create what we call virtual buildings, like having drawings established that are the right zoning, that are the right use for a particular piece of property. They're drawings, they're ready to go. It's not a spec building, but it's a visual, so that when a customer comes out, at least we can show them a visual of what could be on this property in Medford or White City or Central Point, wherever it may be, and that they can be assured that that building and those drawings are ready to go if that's what they want, with minor modification.
Because no one's probably, I assume, is going to go out and build a large spec building on the hopes that someone's going to come in and rent it. That just doesn't happen.
Now, we would love
probably.
that if that would happen.
Yeah, but I bet you would.
Now, there are states that do that. The Midwest states and some of the East Coast states, they have funds and resources, maybe through their sales tax within their states or otherwise, where they can set up funds and actually bet on what's to come and do a spec building.
But not here, is that right?
But we don't have the ability to do that here. And so we're trying to be creative and do some different things, and at least have similar templates of real estate flyers and things that we can show a company and get them here. We want them to come here because we believe if they come here, they fall in love with the area, and that increases the chances of them choosing Southern Oregon.
How does other available land go for whatever kind of uses that you're looking for right now? And I'm not talking about, the marijuana issue is something that we'll talk about that later on, but just how available industrial land, light industrial land, do we have an adequate supply of it? Because, and Joe's not here because he goes to all those planning meetings and hears all of that stuff. So what's your take on that?
Well, there's a lot of discussion at So Ready and with our partners about that, because we believe there is not an adequate supply of light industrial land.
Okay.
It may appear that there is, but not in large parcels. Like there's little pockets of, an acre here and an acre there. But, we recently had a potential customer that wanted over 100 acres to build a very large facility that would hire 500 employees, and we didn't have it. And so we're immediately off the list for that. That's right. So larger parcels are hard to come by, and larger parcels that actually have the right infrastructure already to the site are somewhat hard to come by. So we do have some larger parcels that are general industrial land, but it's not within a jurisdiction. So there's some other problems that come into play.
Do you ever feel, as you deal with local governments, that do they get it? Do the elected people around here, the commissioners and the city council people you talk with, because I'm sure you talk with them sometimes, do they get what you're trying to do, these kinds of issues? Do they understand that you're not going to be able to do what you're charged to do because of those types of issues, holding it up?
I think, yes, in part they do understand, and as we educate them more, we're coming around to conversations that will help us find solutions now, because we have what is probably the most restrictive land use policy in the nation of any state. So
that's been that way
we need to look
at
that as a positive and figure out, okay, what can we do with those parameters and find a solution. So the conversations are starting. This is not a new problem, but I think that we are beginning to see more clearly that we need to start working on something to be prepared for the next 10, 15, 20 years and beyond.
Do you get much help from the state of Oregon and all their economic development groups? And they go all over the world. They do all sorts of things you read about. Do we get a fair share of that? Are you involved in any of those kinds of things from So Ready, or are we kind of, the abandoned child that so many of us feel that sometimes we are outside of the Willamette Valley?
We're actually not an abandoned child. We actually have a Business Oregon representative in our office. That's his primary office. He works 5 counties from our office. We make outreach calls together. And then there are 2 national recruitment officers with Business Oregon that go out and drum up leads and respond to leads. And when they do have a lead that's coming and exploring our area, we are asked to participate and provide. So we're working together.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
But one thing Oregon is not is a state that's incentive rich, that has a lot of dollars and marketing dollars behind it to promote itself as a great place to do business. A lot of that is really left to the local regional economic development folks to do that. And we do. So we go to trade shows. We participate in groups like the Oregon Economic Development Association, where we go to a trade show together and promote Oregon and our respective communities. So we're doing some grassroots efforts, but we're not a Texas or a New York that actually can take a lot of their sales tax dollars and funnel it into incentives.
Well, people may remember or may not remember back when the Oregon Lottery was first passed and went in 1986, that the money went to economic development originally. It did not go to where it does. I mean, some of it still does go to economic development, but certainly not the amount that I think it should be. I'm a lottery retailer also, so I see how many thousands and thousands of dollars our place sends to the state, and yet it don't turn back for economic development. It goes into education, other things, yet they keep raising how much money that it raises. So you're right. Every time I think I've ever done interviews over the years of talking with people in your line of business, it seems like Oregon always, every time you go out, you have 2 strikes against you before you even get started. Is that a fair way to say it, or close to that sometimes?
It definitely seems that way. I've been at a few recent trade shows right at the same time that, we are now have passed a minimum wage law that can be very restrictive for some, not so much the companies that we work with, but there's this perception out there growing that Oregon's becoming more and more business unfriendly. And so that concerns me when I'm out there. And it is rough to counteract those, but still be an ambassador for Southern Oregon specifically and say it is still a great place to be, to live and do business.
Well, you must say that over and over in your head, Colleen. I can imagine how many times you must say those kinds of things. But still, you're always up against the rules, the rules and the kinds of things that are so restrictive to business. And I think as you more you get into it, you don't realize it until you're there, and how restrictive it can actually be on you, especially on you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's different for every business. Most manufacturers that we would be courting are going to pay a higher wage than minimum wage, so it may not even become a factor. But in other senses, there are other things that we have to deal with. Perhaps this gross receipts tax that's up for consideration. It may be the land use policy. It may be legalized marijuana is a constraint also for some businesses.
And if you've gone around and when you talk to people, how much does that come up about recreational marijuana now legal in Oregon from businesses and entrepreneurs that are out there?
From the manufacturers we speak to, it doesn't come up as often because they still have their requirements on how you show up to work. It doesn't change the fact that you still have to show up and be drug-free and that sort of thing. But there are other concerns around it. Primarily, back to the real estate question, is we see potential warehouses and properties that could be used for industrial use, potentially being gathered up for an indoor grow.
Sure.
So that could be a concern that has happened in Colorado. And so we are trying to prepare for that also. So some things are just indoor grows.
What's interesting about this particular conversation is that, I hear and read that we're creating $1 billion plus industry out of this, and with hemp, going to be able to grow hemp and all the kinds of things associated with medical and all these things here. And we're such this place that, do you look at it, does SoReady look at that also as a potential job creating industry, that there's more out there than in this infancy of it, or is it just totally off, not on your radar?
We clearly understand that it is an opportunity for jobs. The challenge that we have as an agency, we also receive federal funds, so we have to be careful about what things we do. And I think right now it's more like we have to know what the rules are. Jackson County's been trying to figure that out. So we have to have a clear understanding of what can or cannot be done in this industry in Oregon before we try to actively go after something like that. But we do have some constraints also.
Can you organize some? What about even organizing the different parts of this that are out there into some sort of group? Is that possible? That would, we see the home builders, and the Builders Association have kind of come together. What about the growers, the hemp, that kind of thing, into what you do, incorporate that somehow into that? I don't know if that's even possible. It just seems that we're starting this industry here, and SoReady has a role to play in it, I think. I don't know what that might be.
I agree there may be a role for SoReady in this, but again, I would just say that we want to know what the rules are first,
Yeah, okay.
and what can be done in industrial use. Our focus is always going to be on traded sector jobs. Those are jobs that most of the business comes from outside the area. It's new wealth coming into the area. So it's going to be on the traded sector, and then it's going to be on jobs that are higher than average wages.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's our first priority. And if some production or something around marijuana fits into that, I'm sure we'll consider it.
Well, we'll see. You never know, Colleen, where it's going to go. We've been, it's taken all sorts of twists and turns along the way. We're talking with Colleen Padilla from SoReady, the Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development, today here on the Real Estate Show. Jobs in real estate. We got to hear some of the stories about some of the entrepreneurs that are around here creating jobs, and some great stories out there. We're coming right back here on the Real Estate Show to KMED right after this. The Real Estate Show rolls on here on KMED in this March weekend of 2016. Pete Belcastro with you. Don't forget, you can check out any of our shows both on cable TV, the internet, and on radio at realestateshoworegon.com. You can find any of the past shows there, and hope you'll do that. Hope you'll tell your friends as well. Today here on the show, we're talking with Colleen Padilla from Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development. She's the Senior Business Development Manager there, and she's been there for like 14 years. So she's a native of Jackson County, of Medford, actually. Colleen graduated Medford High, right? You said that?
That's right.
From Medford High. So, but you've seen this place over the years then, growing up here like that. You've seen it change a lot, hasn't it? And it stayed the same a lot, too, hasn't it?
I have seen it change dramatically.
Yeah. Let me ask you just some of, here in this is part of the show, some of the different successes that you've had, and SoReady has had. At the recent business conference, I know a number of people were up there, were new people I had never seen or heard of, and the businesses that they brought into this valley. And my mouth is just a gap, and I'm going, gosh, I'd love to interview some of these people because I love their stories. So you've got really, it's working in so many ways what you do in fulfilling your guys' job or your role here.
Thank you. We agree that it's working. We really have three focus areas, and that is to launch companies, help companies relocate, and help companies prosper. So we did have some success last year with a few companies that made announcements. One of them was at the Southern Oregon Business Conference, Take It Incorporated, which is the makers of BedSlide. So they relocated back from Indiana back to Medford, and are doing quite well over in the old Slick Car racetrack in West Medford. So they're doing well. They have well over 30 jobs now there, which is a great thing for us. Out near the Medford Airport, there's building American Warehouse Tire Distributors is building a large facility there, so you might notice that sometime, and they'll hire 15 to 25. And then JakeWilson.com is an e-commerce company that announced last year. It's in downtown Medford, and they have nearly 30 employees there now as well, just since last December.
Wow.
So we do see some success, though a lot of the successes in our region that really don't get noticed are the companies that already exist here that are adding one job or two jobs or 10 jobs. And we see a lot of those happening as well in both counties. So I don't want to leave out Josephine County. Yeah. It's also very dear to our heart. So a lot of little companies growing and expanding, and we can't always talk about them directly, but it is happening. And that's the heart of what SoReady does. We go out and visit the existing traded sector companies, manufacturers, that are adding jobs.
And you're obviously look how many you just said there that were not here. If we were here a year or 2 years ago, those jobs, none of those were here. So
that's right, and we're very hopeful we'll have another one or two announcements in the next several months that are working on their final due diligence to get up and get started. So watch for those announcements.
That's always good to hear. Do we have enough? You drive around some places in these massive, large business parks or industrial parks in different communities you drive through. I was trying to think, other than the Whetstone Industrial Park out there in White City, I'm trying to think of maybe there's a business park here or there. But do we have enough of that? Is that something that we need more of here to be more attractive? Or tell me where that particular area or issue is.
We would say that we do not have enough industrial parks. In fact, that's been a criticism recently of some site selectors that have visited our area and provided a location assessment for our area just last year. Okay. That, what we have in our region is pockets of industrial development here and there, but they're far
They're
and
few and far
in between.
Okay.
And so why do we want more industrial parks? Because it allows businesses to really collaborate around ideas and grow and share services and learn from one another. And so we would be very interested in seeing more light industrial parks develop.
Well, it makes total sense. It's like the old political precincts world. And if you're a political consultant, you would go in and people live in precincts. They're broken down that way because those are people with they're like-minded.
Right.
In the same way as business, it's the same way. If you create those areas, they're going to create more and create more and just grow along with it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cluster effect. So where they're next to each other, then new ideas are
And
born.
we don't have much of that, is what you're saying. Enough of it even to meet those needs. So what we've heard today so far, Colleen, you haven't been, you got these successes, but the issues that are out there. Not enough industrial land and no large buildings. That's the kind of things for the industrial kind of businesses that are out there. They need those things, and we lack that. We lack that infrastructure part. Okay, take me to another part. What about a conference center? I've been saying for years this is something that our valley needs. It would be economic. It would be a big thing. It would create jobs over time, etc. What is our chances of that?
Well, I don't know that I can speak to that directly. We don't necessarily work in that field, so we're kind of on the fringe.
Okay.
But from my opinion, having a conference center would be very helpful. We ourselves, when we're putting together an annual meeting or something like that, we only have 1 or 2 locations we can go to, if we have more than 300 guests. So I think it's definitely something that should be looked at, and it is being looked at.
It is being looked at now,
It's just a matter of how does it get funded and what sustains it. And I don't have the expertise to answer that question, but I know that there's folks that are helping those who are doing the feasibility study figure it out.
But the state and those kind of things don't have money to contribute to these types of things. Is that right?
The state
in some way, their economic development, all the money that they collect and don't contribute to this kind of thing.
I can't speak for the state of Oregon. I don't know that that's a priority area for them. Like SoReady, they're focused on manufacturing jobs that create a product that creates, gross domestic product
Creating wealth.
Business comes from out of the region, right?
You're creating wealth.
And then, with manufacturer too, for our local jurisdictions, they have buildings and equipment that will have property tax, so that's an additional benefit to the jurisdiction.
Yeah. Well, there seems like there's it's kind of good, it's good news and bad news. I'm sure it's frustrating sometimes for you, especially I'm sure you've met many business people who are close to coming here and yet would, slip away and for the different reasons, whether it is in everything here that we have in our state. We have so many wonderful things here going for us, and yet so many restrictions, and yet those restrictions that make us sometimes a wonderful place to live. And so it's kind of like a catch-22, isn't it?
It is a catch-22, and so there's the negative and the positive, but it just depends on where you're coming from. What might be a negative for you is a positive for me. So we just continue to say, we want your business, and if you want to be here, we're going to help you prosper. Yeah.
Does it surprise you that Oregon has become such a magnet for inflow? I think our state is like now 2 years in a row is the number one destination that people are coming to of the 50 states. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me at all. I attend quite a few trade shows on behalf of SoReady, looking for businesses to come to Southern Oregon. And no matter who I talk to, they will say, "Oh, Oregon, I really want to retire to Oregon. Oh, I just love Oregon. I just got to figure out how to get back there." Or I was from Oregon.
Right.
And so it doesn't surprise me. We just don't have the large critical mass of big companies that some of those folks would work for. So I think the retirees are coming back. It's a beautiful place to live. People know that it's a great place where good things are made, food products.
How are we doing for education-wise? Are you finding that we have a talented enough workforce that is available out there for businesses? I mean, not a lot of them maybe, but have we improved in that area of the workforce?
You bring up a very critical consideration for any company. Usually their first consideration is whether or not we will have the workforce to fit their need. Yeah. And so are we getting better? I hope that we're getting better. The labor market is tight right now. Our unemployment rate is down.
Yes.
What we find is that even our existing companies are having a hard time filling positions across all levels from entry level to skilled level to professional level. They have a hard time recruiting people here because not a lot of amenities that a big city might have. So it's kind of across the board in terms of the workforce. But we have some great agencies locally like the Rogue Workforce Partnership and So Ready and RCC. We're all collaborating together with businesses to try to figure out how do we attract more employees or how do we skill up those employees. We have those conversations regularly with local business.
Well, let me tell you, that is really good that's good to hear because the home builders come in here, they can't find skilled workers to be in the trades. And I'm hoping RCC's new president and their new route may help contribute to that because we really do have a lot of places that we need people to work and they're not there. And boy, that'd be
You're
really
absolutely
something.
right.
All right, we got one more segment to go with Colleen Padilla from the Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development today here on the Real Estate Show. Jobs in real estate and a whole lot more. Coming right back to KMED after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED this March weekend of 2016. Pete Belcastro with you. Don't forget that we're here next week. We'll be talking with Brad Bennington of the Southern Oregon Builders Association. Catch up with Brad 2 weeks from today. We'll have mortgage updates on the mortgage world out there that continues to really amaze me in terms of that those interest rates are in the 3%, and I think we all thought that after they raised them back in December that they were going to go higher, and in fact they did not, which is a good news for buyers, particularly if you're getting a loan, because of course those loans allows you to get a little bit more house, perhaps. Anyway, today here on the Real Estate Show, jobs in real estate, we're talking with Colleen Padilla. She's the Senior Business Development Manager for Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development, and they're charged really from both Jackson and Josephine counties as kind of the center place to attract new business. I will say one thing, Colleen, one of the great success stories that has been had here, and sometimes it goes overlooked, is Amy's Kitchens and their great success. I mean, I see their products much more in local stores, and certainly, and they're really quite a success story, aren't they?
Amy's is a great success story. In fact, I'm hoping to go visit their corporate office here shortly because we would like to do a Southern Oregon Edge profile on that company. So they've been around several years now, and they went from a couple hundred employees to nearly 1,000 employees or more. They've made significant investment in our region. It is a food products manufacturer. They have great employees. They offer benefits. It's a great company. Mm-hmm.
Well, and you're right, and they employ and they've contributed to the community. Those are like the angels. It's businesses that you want to have who really contribute into our community. Here in our last segment, I don't want to run out of time because I know that there's a lot of businesses out there, and again, entrepreneurs are hardworking people, so hard, and you actually can help local people to expand and make their businesses, as you say, prosper. So what are the kinds of things that you might be able to help a local guy who's got a business that they're working, maybe they need a boost, need a loan, something that you can't get? Tell me what goes on there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you asked that question because the heart of what So Ready is established to do really is to reach out to our existing companies, mostly manufacturers, and help them grow and expand. More jobs will be created through a company that already exists here than us going out and recruiting another company. Sure. So that's really the heart of what we do. We have a person specifically on staff, Kathy Troutman, who is our business development manager. She will go out and make appointments, reach out to them, visit and find out what are your constraints. Are you growing? What do you need help with? It may be workforce training dollars that we might be able to find. Okay. It might be just informing that there's an enterprise zone where they are, that if they add property or equipment, that we could get some incentives for that as well. So we try to visit them on a regular basis, find out what their needs are, and help them grow. Or it may be a legislative concern that we can pass along to the legislature or other of our counterparts. We also have a loan program. And
so you actually will loan directly to a business.
That's exactly right. So our loan program is over 20 years old now, and we have several $1 million yet to lend. Okay. We are considered a gap financer. So if you're a business and you are having trouble getting some financial assistance from your bank, or maybe the bank can only do part of it, we can fill the gap. And so we invite you to call our loan officer, Noland Alston, and discuss that. And we can loan up to $250,000.
Really?
And we are like a bank in that we're going to look at credit and we're going to look at your financials. But our real driving factor is, are you going to retain or create jobs?
That's the bottom line then.
That's the bottom line. Jobs are always the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. And have you loaned some money out? I mean, do you do this on a regular basis
yes,
to people?
Yes, we have. In the last 20 years or so, we've loaned over $17 million with about 225 accounts in both counties.
And what is kind of like your default rate? Do most people pay this all back? Are those businesses still here, or do they kind of disappear, would you say?
You know, we do have companies that default because we're established to take on higher risk loans.
Right.
The company that doesn't have financials yet to get a bank loan. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what our default rate is specifically, but I know we've had success with many companies.
Sure.
And really that's what we're established to do is just, again, take on those higher risk loans.
Yeah, because no one else will do it. And, of course, if our listeners who are long-time listeners will know what Joe and I think of big banks, and it's not very highly, as a lot of people do. Because of that, they don't want to really, they say they want to do things, but when you actually go talk to them, they just don't want to do it. And so, thank goodness that So Ready is here to fill that gap. Because I think if you weren't here, Colleen, if this organization, if the commissioners defunded you, it would be just a disaster. I mean, I think it would be a horrible thing. But I think your funding's pretty stable, it seems. But what you're doing is really important.
We think what we do is important also because if you're a business and you want to be in Southern Oregon, who are you going to call just to get started and learn the lay of the land and who to go to for different resources? What incentives may exist? What other companies may exist like you that can help you and mentor you? There's a lot of things we do that we don't necessarily talk about, on a nice little brochure, but we are a liaison between the private and public sector. We can help you connect with planning departments. We have a sounding board every Wednesday, which is for companies or folks who have a business idea and don't know if it's a worthy business idea or not. They can come and just sit down with us, and we'll say, yes, here's your next step. We do a lot of things. We do a variety of things to help businesses launch, relocate, and prosper in Southern Oregon.
And getting through the red tape the government has put up and the roadblocks that government has put up for people is enormous, and at least you're there to help people through it because you get so frustrated by it. It's easier to just walk away and say, I don't want to do, I don't need to do it, rather than go through just what you're like a personal hell trying to get something through. And sometimes it happens in our state, and we hear about it all the time. And we wonder why, we're in the position sometimes that we're in. Well, it's good to hear from you. First of all, thanks for coming down. How can someone get a hold of you at So Ready? First of all, Colleen, if they want to find you.
Well, you can certainly give me a call at So Ready. Our number is 541-773-8946. We really invite you to go to our website and see everything that we might be able to do for you. It's just soready.org, and you can learn about the different events we have coming up as well. Yeah, well, it's we'll have you back again and hear about more success stories of entrepreneurs coming here. Hopefully some land, commercial land, industrial land, and hopefully that's going to happen. Industrial parks, I think those kinds of things. And as you say, and I think the biggest thing is that if you own a business or you know someone who does and are doing the kinds of things that meet that criteria, and you're not getting a loan, or you've been turned down, don't give up. I mean, I have that on my door at home, a wonderful poem about never giving up. And So Ready is there to help you. Thanks a lot, Colleen, for being here today. Yes, soready.org is the place to go for more information. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show today here on KMED. Hey, have a great week, everybody. We're back next Saturday right here on KMED for another edition of the Real Estate Show. Have a great week, and God bless you all.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on KMED AM and FM radio, presented by John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon, along with All Cities Property Management, the Home Builders Association of Jackson County, Ditech Mortgage, the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District, and the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. For guest information or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshoworegon.com. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED.